Gaetano Donizetti, an Italian operatic composer who was born in Bergamo, a lovely city quite close to the Lake of Como, the very picturesque alpine area in the north of the Italian landscape, was a very prolific opera composer. He wrote very rapidly. He wrote a huge number of operas, over 70 in his rather brief lifetime. And he wrote all kinds of operas. He wrote serious operas, comic operas, melodramatic operas, half serious, half comic. But of all his work, Lucia di Lammermoor, or Lucy of Lammermoor, if you like, must be considered A, his most successful piece, and B, by far his most frequently performed piece. He based the opera, reputedly, on a wonderful rambling novel of Sir Walter Scott's The Bride of Lammermoor. But many people who know the opera and also know the novel sort of say, well, exactly how was it based on the novel? Many differences were made between the opera and the novel. Operatic conventions of the time, we must remember that Donizetti wrote in the 1830s and 1840s, so he fits rather neatly between the great masterpieces of Rossini and the possibly even greater masterpieces of Giuseppe Verdi, who followed him. There were certain operatic conventions which had to be obeyed at the time. And the major convention was tied to the vocal characteristics of the characters in the opera. It was a rather recent development at the time that the hero, romantic hero in this case, who dies rather sadly at the end of the opera, had to be a tenor. This was something quite new because in Rossini's time the hero, who was not that romantic, was normally either a castrato, that is a male who had received a little operation to allow him to sing like a soprano or mezzo-soprano, or more recently, because castrati were dying off, he was a woman, generally a mezzo-soprano, a sort of low, chesty, beefy sound. But Lucia di Lammermoor really establishes for the first time the romantic tenor as the leading role. The tenor of the beautiful death or the tenor of the terrible curse. These are the two most salient aspects of the role when Edgardo curses Lucia for betraying him and when he commits suicide at the end of the opera to join her in heaven. The young lady of the opera had to be, of course, a soprano, and in the period, which is typically second period bel canto, if you forgive the rather general classification, there was lots of florid work, there was coloratura work, there was a lot of emotional expressiveness taken to heights, romantic heights, which the earlier period had not taken, and the greatest heights to which this passion was taken in Lucia was the mad scene, probably the best known single item in all Italian opera and certainly in Donizetti's romantic opera. The craziness of poor Lucy leads her to warble away, and although she's just killed her husband, she expresses herself through wild fioriture. The brother is, of course, the villain of the piece, and although in Scott the brother is many members of her family in the opera, he is centered into one wonderful baritone sound. And the bass, the priest who encourages Lucia to break her vows to Edgardo and get married, is the last member of the traditional quartet of singers.